Welcome to If People Only Knew, the show that brings untold stories to light. I'm your host, Anna Matson. Let's get started. Well, we have Bob Hoffman here with us today, and this is a very fun episode because we are in his Oval Office. So before we get into really why we're here today, I would love for you to fully introduce yourself, who you are, and why you built this office.
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure to be here today. I am the Oakland County Commissioner for District 7.
My county commissioner.
Yes.
So I know you're good.
Thank you very much. I'm a small farmer, small business owner, and when I built this observation wine tasting room, my first objective, I always wanted an Oval Office. So I guess we designed everything else around the Oval Office.
And how long have you had this? When did you first build it?
2017 approximately.
Oh, wow. So it's new.
Yeah, so it's fairly new.
Wow. So is the whole barn and everything all new?
No, I bought this rundown farm 31 years ago.
Oh, okay.
The stables were here, and I've redone most of them. But I built an indoor riding arena, and then years later, I built that in 1995. But then I built this observation Oval Office wine tasting room about 2017.
And you said it's not necessarily as big as the real Oval Office, but it's a pretty close replica.
Yeah, it's real close. The real Oval Office is approximately 40 feet long, and this might be 25 feet long. So it's pretty close. You'll get the idea.
Yeah, a lot of people are probably going to listen to the podcast opposed to watch it, but if people want to see it, they should watch this episode, at least at the beginning. So I'll make sure to put clips of the whole office. And yeah, I think it's so cool.
Thank you.
So I first met you, I think at a local meeting. You were the head of the DDA, and I always went there because that's where our small businesses are supported. And the crazy thing happened, you actually listened to people. It was wild. You don't see that in politics. And we have this one person in town that likes to go to all the meetings and complain that the town is tacky, and everyone blows him off. But he's an old guy, and he loves the town, and he's done a lot of great things for the town. And instead of blowing him off, you're like, okay, let me just listen to you. And every now and then he brought up really great points, and you're like, okay, if we don't have the financial records, let's just get him the financial records. Why are we trying to keep everything secret? So that was my first introduction to you. And then obviously found out you're not only on the board for our local town, but you're also county commissioner. And it's just been remarkable getting to know you and seeing the work you've done. Even just recently, you met with a family that was having legal trouble, and you went to their home. What politician does this nowadays? You went to their home and actually talked to them. It's so crazy. And it's just remarkable what you do. So the podcast is called If People Only Knew. And I wanted people to know that there are good politicians out there. We just have to find them and vote for them. And something that we've talked about in the past, we're both a very minority opinion in this, that we kind of are against age limits and term limits. And the reason why I'm against them is because of you, because I see the great work you're doing, and I would never want you aged or termed out unless you're getting senile, Bob.
No, that's absolutely true. And back to your earlier comments, I truly believe government should be open, honest, and transparent. And when some citizen comes to your public meeting or contacts you, listen to their concerns. I see government so many times circle the wagons and don't want to investigate what the concern is. And if the citizen has a legitimate concern, address it. If he doesn't, talk to him and tell him why you don't agree with him. But this one particular person you were speaking of, he has done so much for the village of Holly, And he really should be commended for what he's done. And we need more people like that because it keeps elected officials on their toes. I truly believe that most people in this world and most politicians are good, decent people. Sometimes they get caught up in it. This job is, I don't even look at this job, it's more like an honor to serve in this capacity. But I really take this seriously, and I tell people that I represent my district first and Oakland County second. But we are here to serve. And regarding the term limits, I'm adamantly opposed to those. Unless, like you suggested, if some person starts losing their mental capacity or they have a physical handicap that won't let them perform anymore. But everything in life is experience. And with experience, you gain more common sense. And there's not enough common sense in government.
Yeah, common sense isn't so common nowadays.
That is so true. But we are here to serve. And the thing is, I consider this job like easy because I know what my core values are. I'll never deviate from them. And it's just simple. It's just like, and I enjoy what I'm doing too because it's a position where you can actually help people.
So walk me back a little bit. Were your parents ever political at all?
No, matter of fact, first of all, I had the best parents in the world. They were like the most unbelievable. I never heard them swear. I never heard them talk about anybody behind their back. They never degraded anybody's ethnic background, color of their skin, religion, nothing. And probably most importantly, I have no clue how they voted. They never. It's basically, my dad led by example. He was a rock. And lots of times when I have to make a decision, I think of my dad.
That's awesome.
And he was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I owe him. I wouldn't trade anything I have right now to not have the childhood I had.
Wow.
They were the best.
That's awesome. So, what did it look like for you? Okay, so you had a great childhood. Did you go to college? What was your early life like?
I actually had a little lawn service in my neighborhood when I was 13. I'd do anything to make a buck. I had a paper out like most people do. I even remember when I was 15, went and painting somebody's house, cleaned their gutters, trimmed their bushes. I did everything. Mm-hmm. I always say my parents gave us everything we needed, but anything we wanted, we had to go get a job. And we had an incredible work ethic. We had respect for authority, and I think some of those things are lacking today.
Yeah. No, that's a good philosophy. Give your kid everything they need, but what they want, go work for it. I love that.
Yep, go work for it. And then I started my first business really when I was 19, another one when I was 23. I bought the farm, the old saying, I bought the farm, but I'm still alive. 31 years ago, an old rundown farm and built it up. But I always tell young people too that if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And I've done a few things in my life. I go, man, Bob, this is the craziest thing you've ever done. But I never gave up, and I never take no for an answer. And that's what I tell young people, too. Follow your dreams. Live life on your own terms.
Yeah. And you've built quite a life. I mean,
I'm blessed.
Your kids are amazing. Do you have grandkids, too?
7 and 1 great-grandson.
Wow.
I'm old.
Yeah, you're just doing a great job. So how did you get involved in politics?
I this might sound a little silly, but I remember when I was younger, I always thought I was put here for a reason. And I always was encouraged by the people around me, my dad in particular, and my mother and my uncles and my aunts. They were all just solid rock type people. And then I had some other mentors too that I looked up to, and I almost said, I want to be like that guy, I want to be like that guy. But it's like giving back, and it's also creating your legacy. I remember as a kid, I went to St. Benedict's, and we had a little library in our class. I read every book I could about American revolutionary type people, Washington, Jefferson, the baseball players, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth. I read all like the rags to riches, people who overcame obstacles and succeeded. And I told myself, I want to be like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I just love people who overcome adversity and live life on their own terms and give back. I think everybody needs to give back.
Yeah, I think that's honestly the secret to happiness is when you're always chasing your own happiness and thinking internally, that's when you become unhappy. But if you use your life to serve others, that's where happiness comes from. So what was your first position in government, or when was that turning point where you're like, I need to run for this, or were you appointed? What happened?
Well, I was president of my student council at
Oh.
Waterford Township High School. And you know what's interesting about that is I remember one time the janitors came to me and said, look, the teachers are busting these guys, the boys in the bathroom for smoking, and the smokers are throwing their cigarette butts into the urinal, and the janitors are complaining they have to clean them out. So you know what I did? I solved the problem. I put ashtrays in the bathrooms. I got old coffee cans, filled them a third with water, and went into these guys and said, look, when the teachers come in and bust you for smoking, throw your cigarette butts in this coffee can. And that worked good for a while till the administration said, Bob, you can't do that. I said, I solved a problem. Well, then after that, I became Waterford Township Supervisor from 84 to 88. And that was a great experience, too. And I think it helped that I had a small business background going into that, you know, because I thought that job was actually pretty simple, you know.
Yeah, so many times I look at politicians, I'm like, you've never run a business, have you? Like, you do not know how to manage a budget. And it's just funny because, like, I always try to tell people, like, especially in my local town, okay, if you want to buy like this big fancy thing over here, that means you're pulling from our things that are really necessary, like our fire department, our police department, all that, our water department. So what's more important? You have your shiny little things, or that these departments, you know, get cut. And it's just like we need people to actually step back and know how to budget and, you know, do financials. And that's just lacking so much in government today.
Yeah, you do have to prioritize. And I see a lot of dynasty building in government because it's like a vicious circle where they'll build up their department, and then when it comes time to evaluate their pay, they come to you and say, look, my department's so much bigger now, I have more employees, I'm worth more money. And when I was at Waterford, I'd have some department heads do that to me, and I said, you know, they'd come to me and say, I'm doing the work of two people. I says, you can only do so much work in 8 hours a day. And but that was a good experience too, and I really enjoyed doing that. And then in about 1999, a position opened on the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, and they wanted somebody to appoint who would not run, and then it'd be open, and, you know.
Oh, really?
So I went down and applied, and you know, there were 2 or 3 other people applying, and I was appointed commissioner for 6 months. In that 6-month period of time, see, I really believe in free enterprise. I believe in capitalism. I believe in the market economy. In that short 6-month period, I voted against 2 tax-subsidized golf courses that are owned by the county that would compete with free enterprise. And I'd point out to them, look, you guys can charge the same for your tee-off times, your glass of beer, and your hamburger. But you know what? People like the Pontiac Country Club in Waterford, they're upside down already by $100,000 a year because they have to pay property taxes. Unfair competition. So I voted against it. Then the administration, when I was there, wanted to have a tax-subsidized daycare center for the employees' children. And I voted against that too, because you're competing with free enterprise. I I just don't agree with that.
Yeah, so many problems stem from the government. And I don't even like to say free. Like, they're not giving out free money, they're giving out our money. And especially living in Michigan, like, so much of our money goes to the big three, and that's not capitalism. Capitalism is survival of the fittest. It's the best businesses survive, and it actually decreases competition because they know that they're going to get paid by the state regardless. And we don't get any benefit for that. Like, are we shareholders in the big three? And it's not just them. I mean, there's so many companies that just get subsidized, and farmers struggle. You think that it's actually a good thing that there's subsidies for different crops, but it actually really hurts the small farmer. Right now, they're dealing with the bird flu, and they're actually giving farmers money to kill healthy birds, but they won't give you money if you kill the sick birds. It's just completely backwards. So it's incentivizing farmers to kill off healthy stock and actually have a shortage of chicken.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And I see so many things. First of all, I like being county commissioner because you can help people. And it's a conduit between the state and local government and the citizens. Mm-hmm. But I wrote a guest editorial maybe 10 years ago to the Oakland Press, and it's the government I fear the most. And the government I fear the most is local government. While they're well-intended, they will violate your constitutional rights in a heartbeat because they want that little bit of power, they want that control, the prestige. I'm not even sure what it is, instead of doing what's absolutely right, I lost my election in 1988 as Waterford supervisor because a few months before the election, I suspended a township employee who was everybody's buddy. And I caught him doing something you shouldn't do. And so I suspended him. And some people afterwards said, Bob, he was everybody's friend. That probably cost you the election. I said, I don't care. I had a job before I came here. I'll have a job after I leave, and I sleep good at night. On January 1st, 1989, the Oakland Press put my picture on the front page. So the winners and losers for 88. Bob Hoffman lost the election, but we're putting him in the winners column because he stood up for the taxpayers.
Wow.
And I do that again in a heartbeat. The job is just simple. And I see local government lots of times use the bird flu thing. But I see them creating ordinances lots of times that make no rhyme or reason. Now, I own a farm. It's a horse farm, and I grow hay on a couple hundred acres. They have ordinances in all the communities around here that says you need, say, some of them say, like, you need 1 acre for the first horse, half acre for every horse after that. Some communities say you need 5 acres for the first horse, a couple acres for every horse after that. There's no scientific reason. If it were science that would determine how many horses could live on an acre, it'd be exact. But they all have different ordinances.
Yeah.
And I think you need to talk to people who have the experience. And I always tell elected officials, too, don't surround yourself with a bunch of yes people, because you know what? You'll fail. You need to have somebody that will respectively debate you and talk to you and show you the facts.
Well, and we've disagreed on things before, and we just, we disagree respectfully and say, okay,
Right.
like, we move on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where people got it in their head that you need to agree with everything your political party or your elected officials are doing. Like, I just don't get where that mindset came from. Like, we should be able to criticize, even if you're Republican, you should be able to criticize Trump if he does something wrong, And it's same thing if you're Democrat. You should be able to criticize Democrats. No one is perfect. My husband and I can't even agree on dinner most days. Like, why would you agree with your elected officials every day? So yeah, I definitely hear that.
Well, back to the term limits, too.
Yeah.
It's funny, every campaign season, I've been at the county now since 2010. I filled an unexpired term and then ran in the special election. I've won every year since.
How long are your terms?
Well, they were 2 years and now they're 4 years.
Okay.
The state legislature just changed it to 4 years. And it's interesting, too, because people would say to me when the election's coming up, they say, Bob, you ever thought about going to Lansing? I said, yeah, I have a young son. He was 10 when I first got elected. He's 20 now. Bob, you ever thought about going to Lansing? I said, yeah, on a field trip with my son Anthony. Because the main reason is I don't like term limits. Why do you get rid of experience? And you have incredible public servants like Senator Runstead, Senator Ruth Johnson, and they're going to be term limited. And so who's running the place?
Well, in the
bureaucrats,
example,
the lobbyists.
yeah, and that is a good point too. A lot of times new elected officials, they don't know the process, and so they rely on the staff, the bureaucracy, to tell them what to do. So that's where like the deep state people talk about takes control. And you definitely see that in local government. And I mean, I go to almost every local meeting and I see it all the time. These people just do not know how to do their job. So they look at the unelected staff and they say, what should we do? That's your job to decide what to do, not theirs. But they almost always go off the recommendation of the staff because they don't know how to do their job. So yeah, I definitely, especially local, there should not be term limits because you'd run out of people, honestly, that even want to run.
Well, I don't think I'm not opposed to it because you run out of people. I think experience is everything in life. And you're absolutely right about some local municipalities. I've seen that because they're not, I always jokingly say at the county when I have a young new commissioner, I'll say to them, your youth and inexperience is showing through once again. But it's true, and they rely on somebody who's been around a long time to guide them, and depending on where that person's allegiance lie, they're just going to do what that person says. But these elected officials, they need to have the experience and figure it out, and they need not be afraid, to stick their neck out or take on a task, because I pride myself on helping a lot of people over the last years personally. I've done, like you said, I go to their house, I do different things. We had a situation a few years ago, Davisburg Elementary School. Their parking lot was too small on Davisburg Road, so parents would park on both sides of Davisburg Road. So I got a call one day from the superintendent and wanted to have a meeting with me, the road commission, and the principal. And we want them to address the concerns that some kid's going to run between these cars on the side of the road and get injured or killed. And the lady from the road commission, and I'm sure she had legitimate reasons, but she said we can't do it because that statistic doesn't allow it or that rule doesn't allow this, that, the other thing. The lady from the road commission got up and left the meeting, and then I'm walking out a few minutes later with the superintendent and the principal, and I told the superintendent, the road commission is going to do exactly what we want them to do. And he looked at me and said, Bob, did you just walk out of the same meeting I did? They are not going to do anything. I said, yes, they are. So, and this is the experience part. I called somebody at the road commission, started talking to him about what I would like them to do, and this is why I'd like to do it. And he started giving me pushback too. And I said, okay, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. Can I have your permission? Can I call you back when some kid runs between the cars and gets killed? Is it okay? Can you help me then? He says, I'll take care of it. 3 weeks later, they're out there doing everything we wanted. They were restriping it. They put up flashing lights, slowed the speed limit down. So that worked out good. But it's sometimes it's, the experience allows you to know who to call if you have a problem. And the other thing is don't take no for an answer.
Well, and I like too that you also, you have many businesses, right? Like you run the farm, and you own the farm. I don't know if do you run it day to day too at all?
No, I have great employees.
Yeah.
You're only as good as your help.
Yeah.
I have incredible help.
And you also are a landlord and not a slumlord, I will say. You are a great landlord. All of your properties are beautiful. Your rent prices are always amazing, especially for the quality. You're just a great landlord. So that's admirable too, if I could talk.
Thank you.
But I think it's important too, because you're not relying on your commissioner job as your job. Like, you have income elsewhere. So if you lose an election because you did the right thing, then it's fine. Like, you have income elsewhere to fall back on, and you've made a life outside of politics. So even though you've been in politics a long time, you're really not like a lifetime politician that a lot of people would think of, I guess, you know. I feel like a lot of people just run just to get the paycheck, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I think there is some of that too. But the problem with term limits, especially in Lansing, these people know they're only going to be there so long. And so, you know, they're always jockeying for another job if they want to be in public service. And a lot of them are great people, but they get term limited through no fault of their own. But I think term limits is a popular notion. You know,
Yeah.
all politicians are bad. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I think it's a
don't do
cop
it.
out for people not doing enough research on who they vote for. And I know that's going to be harsh for a lot of people to hear, but too often people vote on name recognition. That's probably the number one reason people vote for someone, is just because, oh, I recognize that name. But where does name recognition come from? It comes from people having big advertising budgets to send you the mailers in the mail, to do the advertisements on TV, to do the billboards, all of that stuff. And that's usually the candidate that has the most money. So does the person with the most money necessarily have your best interest at heart? So we have to stop voting on name recognition. And we also need to vote in primary elections, because a lot of people just vote just down party line. And if you're going to do that, the person on your side of the aisle is not always the best person for the job. And primary elections is where you can actually put a good person in your party. But a lot of people skip primary elections, that they're not important, but they're probably more important than the general election, honestly. And now you're a Republican, right?
Yes.
But even you, I wouldn't say that you play party politics.
I try not to. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most people wouldn't even know that. I mean, maybe from like your values of like kind of get the government out of my life type deal, but I've seen it where Democrats like you. Like, there was actually a Democrat that ran against you. I don't think this last election, maybe it was the last election.
There's a couple elections ago. I know who it is.
And it was just funny because this person actually likes you. So I'm like, why are you running against him? So that was so silly. But no, I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would hope that if it comes where you do start to go senile, that you would just step down yourself. But no, I would never want you termed out. And I think term limits, yes, it will get rid of bad politicians, but it'll also get rid of good politicians. And yes, there's not a lot of good politicians, but there are some out there, and we should protect those ones.
Well, you know what? That's a good point. And when Senator Levin, who's a Democrat, retired years ago, I sent him a card, and I thanked him for his service. Now, that's not to say I agree with all of his politics, but I think he was a good, decent man who represented the state of Michigan. I also believe he's a guy that went to Washington, did not come back a millionaire or multimillionaire. He seemed like he was always for the working guy, which I admire that. And I mentioned that to a couple friends of mine one day, how I liked him, you know. And I even mentioned, that I liked him. And oh my God, my Republicans friends came unglued, blah, blah. I said, I'm not talking about his politics. I'm talking about his character. And he's a good, decent man. And those are the type of people we need.
Well, and that's another good point, too, because we just had a big senator's race here, and there was Elisa Slotkin and Mike Rogers running. And even though we probably both would have preferred Mike Rogers, Elisa Slotkin got elected, and not a lot of people aren't really mad about that in our area, because she actually lives in my town and she does a lot for the community. Like, she will go at bat. Like, I don't know if you have contact with her, but there's other local officials that can just call her and she'll answer. And, that's so important for our elected officials. So she does work hard to get our area resources. So even though I don't agree with her politically, I do think she probably is doing more. She obviously could do more, but she's probably doing more than Mike Rogers would have. So that's why it's not always about party.
No, it's really not. And some elections should maybe even be nonpartisan. I'm not sure. But I have an interesting story about the city of Pontiac. That's a pretty Democrat city, and their city council, I don't know if they still are, but they used to be nonpartisan. And when Mayor Wally Holland was the mayor back in the 80s, he won, I don't know how many terms, and I knew him a little bit, good guy. Then he decided when he got out of office to run for, I believe it was county commissioner, as a Republican. He got his clock cleaned. I used to think it's so ironic. You vote for the guy to be your mayor for a few terms, but then he puts that label behind him, and now he's no good. I think he's the same guy.
That's a great
kind
example.
Of ironic, yeah.
Well, I want you to share some fun stories too. So you have had some special guests here at the farm, haven't you, in the past?
That's true. I had the honor and the privilege to work on John McCain's campaign.
Wow.
So John McCain was out here. And I admire him. And if anybody ever compared me to him, I'd take his ultimate compliment. He was solid person. And one thing I learned about him, and I've learned about a lot of people too in higher profile jobs, they always take time to talk to people. They always take the time. One day I was in my office in Waterford, and I'm on the phone, and my secretaries, both of them are saying, "Bob, telephone." I said, "I'm on the phone. I'm talking to Anthony's mom." "Bob, you need to take this call." I said, "I told you guys I'm on the phone." They said, "Bob, it's Senator McCain." And I said, "Bye, Michelle." But he always, and I think the first thing I said to him is, "What are you doing calling me? You got work to do." But he did. Those people, they always take time. I just see it over and over, not just with him, but many people. I think that says a lot about somebody.
And didn't your son meet him too and stuff when he was here?
Oh, yeah. My son Anthony was 4 at the time, and I introduced McCain to the audience, and my little son Anthony decided he wanted the microphone instead of the senator. So anyway, we have a good picture of that, and the senator signed it.
That's
to
awesome.
Anthony. And Anthony's claim to fame is, I'll say, "Anthony, what did you do to Senator McCain?" He said, "I woke him up. He was sleeping upstairs in my bedroom, and Anthony was looking for me." So it's a great story.
Wow.
I always tell
so
people,
fun.
listen, I've screwed up most of my life, but I have great stories.
You do have the best
Let me
stories.
see. I've had, they did a commercial here for Terry Lynn Land when she was running, I believe, for, I think it was the Senate. I can't remember. No, maybe it was for governor. I'm not sure. It was a few years ago. They shot an episode of MTV Cribs here. 2 years ago, I had Vivek Ramaswamy here with Senator Runstead. They had a fundraiser.
Yeah, it was funny. You had Vivek here when he was a nobody.
I know.
No one, because I was asked, "Are you going to come here?" And I'm like, I don't know who this person is.
I
Who
know.
the heck? And then all of a sudden, he's huge. So it's so funny. And then didn't you say you didn't meet Bobby Kennedy, but you
No.
were in the room with him or something? Didn't you say you were at a rally or something with him?
Well, that's when I was a kid. It was his dad. I remember I was in about eighth or ninth grade maybe, and my friends I grew up with were college kids. So Bobby Kennedy was coming to the Pontiac Mall, which became the Summit Place Mall. So they made signs up, said, I was holding a sign that said, "I fight poverty, I work." One of my friends was holding a sign that said, "Pay and pay with LBJ." And I was standing right up front where Kennedy was going to come in. And his staff people came up to me and said, "Hey, kid, I see your sign. It says you fight poverty, you work." He says, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I have a paper route." They kind of moved me out of the center. But it was okay. That was a great experience, too. I mean, I guess I was always interested.
See, I was very involved in the RFK Jr. campaign, and I tried so hard to get him here.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I was like, okay, you need to like do a rally, and you were like, it's free. He can just come here for free. It's fine. And I tried so hard, but I said, even if he doesn't do a rally here, just let him use the Oval Office for like a commercial or something.
Oh, yeah, that'd be wild.
But I guess I'm using it instead. But yeah, so you have some great stories here. Do you want to talk about your executive order you would sign on day one if you were president?
Yes, if I was had the power, I would. I think I'd sign an executive order that outlawed single-ply toilet paper.
I called you yesterday just to make sure that we were good today, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna get all suited up, even though you didn't wear a suit today, but that's okay. And you're like, I want to.
Or most days.
Yeah, you're just usually in jeans, and you know, you just relate to the people. But yeah, you said I want to sign an executive order. I thought that was so fun.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's just about it. Unless there's anything else, any other wise words you want to tell the audience.
Live your life on your own terms. Don't take no for an answer. And we are truly living in the best country that was ever on the face of this earth. And if we don't protect our Constitution, where will people go who want freedom? If we're not here, you know, we need to safeguard that and follow the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, there's attacks all over the world right now on freedom. Like the European Union, they don't have freedom of speech anymore. So we really take a lot of things for granted here. For a while, we didn't even have freedom of speech here, but that's starting to change in our country, too. We're starting to get our freedoms back a little bit. So, yeah, we definitely need to protect our Constitution, and we can't protect it if we don't even know what it says. A lot of people haven't even read the Constitution, and we need to change that too.
Yeah, and the thing is, we all have the same freedoms, but our behavior stops or needs to stop when we start infringing on somebody else's constitutional rights. We're all in this together. Like I said earlier, most people in this world, in this country, are incredibly good people, and they want all the same thing. They want freedom. They want safety for their family and their children. They want a good education system, which I think we're kind of lacking with. But you know what? I'm the eternal optimist. I really believe if you work for a goal, we will accomplish it, and we will survive.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate letting us use your Oval Office. It's so cool. I'll have to steal it again sometime.
Yeah, it was nice the president let us use this space.
But Bob Hoffman, everyone, county commissioner, and just a good guy.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.